Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, we've got the entire team, fresh from Media Day, UCLA goalkeeper coach Saskia Weber. Looking solid. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
That polo, that's some stylish. Is that, I'm guessing that's the new one for this season?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't. I wore it for the shoot. I'm not a polo girl. I get as long as I wear the right color for games, it's fine.
And obviously joining us, guys, fresh from 17 different jobs, whichever goalkeeper coaching job he just came from. You know him as Pro GK Academy, Las Vegas Lights goalkeeper coach Omar Zini, back in the office. Well, actually, no, back at the home now, not in the office.
Yes, back home. I'm excited though. I'm glad to be here. It's exciting, and is your second time or third time now? Oh, sorry, you haven't even introduced the panelists. I'm sorry, Mike.
That's okay. That's okay. We've been chatting about for a while, guys. Making her triumphant return to Inside the 18. We have Sporting Huelva goalkeeper Emily Dolan. Emily, I'm excited. Honestly, it was so much fun with you last year, and to have you back right now, obviously in a new situation now with a different club and everything like that. Why don't we kind of catch up the insiders who might not be familiar with kind of your journey from Real Betis over to Huelva?
Yeah, so this is my second time, Omar. So there you go.
There we go.
There you go. So yeah, I just had finished up a 2-year extension off of a 1-year contract that I had originally signed with Real Betis. Decided that I wanted something different, wanted a new challenge, and was lucky enough to find something else in the top division in Huelva. It's actually the team that has been in the top division for the longest amount of time out of all the teams, which is really cool. So new experience. It's only about an hour and a little bit away from the city I was in. So it's going really well. I'm really happy with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome because, I mean, obviously, you know, one of the things that's always sometimes frustrating with people is that when they move into a new environment and it's not necessarily what they wanted it to be, it sounds like this is literally everything you've wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. There's definitely an adjustment. There's a lot of things that are just administratively different between the clubs. Huelva is an independently women's club. So we don't have necessarily like the financial backing of like Betis if they have a men's team kind of like supporting them in those ways. So there are unique challenges to playing in a club like this, but to be honest, like the environment's great. Like I'm really happy with the coaching staff, the players. I mean, the city's great. So, I mean, if those are the biggest problems that I have, then I can't really complain that much, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's cool that you say that in regards to like, and first off, you know, I love the fact when you were talking about like Huelva, you know, it's kind of one of the founding teams, you know, in that a lot of people are unfamiliar with that, you know, and Omar and Saskia, I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of this and stuff, but like Barcelona didn't first start. It wasn't that yet. Let all the big clubs. It wasn't kind of the big clubs and stuff. They kind of came on board later on. And, you know, Saskia, you know, we've obviously discussed this at kind of like, you know, when the original professional league started here in the United States, you know, a lot of those fan bases, you know, they kind of stayed strong and then it kind of moved on to these NWSL clubs. And, you know, it's fantastic kind of seeing that growth.
Yeah. I mean, are you talking about the MLS?
No, I'm talking about just
WSA?
I'm talking about, well, I'm talking exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like saying there was like those old teams that were in the WSA, and then there were obviously
old teams. Whatever, Mike. No, it's true. No, but it's true, and even especially Washington's a good example of that. You know, with the Washington Spirit, their fan base just kept going. Boston was there for a while as well. You have Philadelphia, Philly for the men, but I think New York and stuff. So they were there for the WSA, and then with the NWSL now they have their new teams and they just transitioned over and grew bigger. So it's great.
Yeah, you know, and I have a question about that because since that Huelva is kind of like one of these original teams kind of in the pro league over there, is there kind of like more of a rabid supporter base there than maybe some of the clubs that, you know, kind of were later to the game on the women's side?
I'd say the fan base is probably smaller, just because it's not as recognizable of a name and as a brand. But the fan base that is here is incredibly dedicated and loyal to supporting the team, like through thick and thin. And also the city is small. I mean, in Sevilla, you've got Betis, you've got Sevilla FC, Madrid, you've got a whole host of teams. In Huelva, you've got Recre, which is the men's team, which is independent from us, and then Sporting Huelva. So you definitely kind of get that sense of the whole city's kind of behind you, and people who are familiar with the team definitely have that respect for it as a club that's been really important for women's football in Spain.
It's kind of what's cool about playing in a smaller market. You know, having a top tier team in a smaller market, when that's the main thing in your town or in your city, you get that great deep fan base, really passionate.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that, because like Omar, obviously, Lights is affiliated with LAFC, but they are in Las Vegas, and it seems like you guys draw pretty good there, because you guys are kind of like the only game in town when it comes to, professional soccer.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting connection with the fans. We definitely have, a lot of losses on the record, so it's not ideal. I wish that when we got back to Vegas, and we do play the Galaxy this Friday, so I'm hoping we do draw a big crowd, but it's definitely that disconnect, unfortunately, where we don't get to see them. They don't get to see our training sessions. We just show up for games, and we haven't put the best product on the field. So I'm hoping on Friday we can. But I mean, again, as a Galaxy fan and growing up in the Galaxy Academy, like since day one, we were able to see that fan base grow, and I actually was able to understand how fans, in growing up in England could, even if their team doesn't move up to Premier League, they can stick with their team no matter what. They don't really jump ship. So I think that, to me, the history of all that is so exciting, and that's why I'm hoping that Angel City, for me at least, from the women's side of things, like I'll feel way more attached to a team than I would for just supporting Gotham because we know Caitlin, stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
Well, I mean, shout out to Angel City. No, obviously, shout out to Angel City. Some big moves this past week. That is for sure.
Right.
Well, Mike and I were at this event a few days ago, and we were speaking to someone who was on the Angel City Women's podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'm excited if Galaxy gets their own women's team, and she was like, no, this is LA's team. This is not LAFC's team, and I was just like, I guess, but it's just so hard for me as the Galaxy supporter to go to the Bank of California and not be enamored with like the stadium presence and all that stuff. So for me, I'm just like, I just can't. It's so hard for me to detach the two, but I'm gonna have to.
You have to detach them.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah.
They're just borrowing our stadium when they play.
There we go. That's it.
And it was still funny.
It's the Angel City Stadium now. It's not LAFC.
And it was Em and Saskia. It was so funny because like when she was talking and everything, I was like, yeah, but like it's the color black and like the angel wings and stuff like that. They're like, they don't own that. They don't own that. Like this is it's pink. They don't have pink. We have pink. It's a completely different thing. And I was like, oh, okay.
No.
So I definitely but I see the passion in the Angel City. But I see the passion in the Angel City supporters, and like obviously, Emily, with what Omar was saying about teams kind of sticking through thick and thin, the fan bases and stuff like that. Have you noticed that because you've played the majority of your career in Europe, have you noticed that like the fan bases are just like really supportive regardless of how the results are going, and in the United States they might be a little bit more fickle?
Yeah, I mean, supportive, but also incredibly demanding. I feel like with that support, there's also a price. Like there is an expectation that the team performs a certain way, or at least delivers a certain product. I mean, if the results aren't going your way, that's fine. But if the team's not playing well, or like the attitude of the players isn't going well, the fans definitely are really quick to call it out. Rightfully, wrongfully, whatever. But it's really just stemming from a passion for that team and that club, regardless of who's wearing the jersey, if that makes sense. And that's been really across the board in all the countries I've played in so far, but especially in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some posts and stuff, and they are definitely passionate. That is for sure. Well, speaking of passion,
really quick, think about the passion that the fans had before. We haven't even started yet. And think about the pressure that was put on them when rumors came out about coaches and this and that and the other. I'll just say that. I mean, our fan base went crazy. And we haven't even fielded a team yet. So there's a lot of pressure. And especially in a market like for us, in a market like LA, forget it. I don't think if we don't step on the field and win the cup in the first season, we'll be in trouble, which give us a couple of years, but still there's that pressure.
I mean, look, obviously the pressure is going on with LAFC right now, Omar. I mean, we were talking to the supporters, on Monday night, at this event. And they were like, what do you mean you don't show up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday? I'm like, are you ridiculous? Are you crazy?
Mike's like, do you know me? I don't do anything at 7 a.m.
Meeting at 7 a.m. It doesn't happen.
I think that's the double-edged sword, though, right? Is one, when you're winning and everything's going well, you have that support from those fans who are going to continue to create that atmosphere that's going to help you. Let's say you're down 1-0 or you need to close out a game. They're helping you push through. And then on the same level, it's again, the double-edged sword of, yes, they're there. However, when you start to lose and those losses compound a little bit more, and the product, again, in a big market like LA is not there. I mean, they're playing well. It's just they're not able to score right now. So again, the fans, even reading the comments and stuff like that, the comments are one thing, but when you get to see the people in person, they're still supportive. They're still pushing through. So it's just, it's tough. And again, this weekend's a tough game for them, the El Tráfico. So it's tough for me, even more for me in the office, because I'm just crap. I want LAFC to win, but I'm also LA is two games in a row we've lost. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. We'll be rooting for you, Omar.
I win either way.
You win either way. Yeah, you win.
I know, that's why I said
it. But yeah.
But before we get to the topic, and by the way, feel free to step in any time whenever you got something you want to say. But what's kind of the biggest rivalry for Huelva?
Any team from Andalusia. We don't have the same type of rivalry as a Sevilla Betis, obviously, because we're the only ones in the city. But basically, anytime we play against Sevilla or Betis, or even if we play a team from a second division like Malaga or Cordoba, those are looked at as kind of our derbies, because we don't really have anything else. But those games are pretty seriously looked at. Nobody here wants to lose to another Andalusian team. So there you go.
You just brought up a bunch of geography that I don't know anything about, and the way, and I was like,
text you a map right now.
Yes, please do that. Please do that. Please do that, because that is one of the things. I mean, obviously, some people know that I run an international comedy show, and people will do similar to what you just did right there, Emily. Not describing their rivalries for the professional teams that they play for. Not a lot of professional footballers at the shows, but they do bring up different things about the geography and the area and things. And I just go, oh yeah, that's somewhere in Spain, right? Good. Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on from there.
Yeah. That's the smile and nod technique. You're just yeah, okay,
I thought you just said the Aleutian, and I was like, isn't that Alaska? So I'm all over the place.
You mean the Aleutian Islands?
Yeah, isn't that off the coast of Alaska?
No,
it's not. Okay,
I don't think so. No.
I thought that was from the Island of the Blue Dolphins that I read in 4th grade. Am I not remembering that right?
I don't remember. Maybe my geography's off too.
I close my computer real quick. Hold on.
All right, move on.
All right. Speaking of geography, one of the things that's very difficult for a lot of goalkeepers to handle is the geography outside of the 18-yard box. Today's topic, guys, is decision making outside of the 18, playing outside the 18. Emily, for maybe some parents who are listening out there or younger players, what do we mean by playing outside of the 18?
So, I define that as any balls that are dropping into spaces between the goalkeeper and the back line, obviously outside the 18-yard box. Sometimes that ball drops and then, it comes into the 18 because you decide to hold your line. And to me, that's still kind of in the same conversation. But it's learning how to manage the space basically between your defensive line and yourself with regards to offensive threats, either filtering through the midfield, coming down the flanks, over the top, kind of that general idea.
Yeah, I think that is a really great description of that, because I think a lot of young goalkeepers, you know, they hear all of that and they go, oh, that just means just coming out and clearing balls, or, you know, or standing at the top of the 18, waving your hand saying like, hey, I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you need me. And, you know, and obviously, you know, Saskia, we know that it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah. I mean, you're there as the last defender. You're there to be played through, depending on the style of play that your team is using, and the space that you're taking up outside of the 18. You know, it should have a bearing on what the other team does. If they see that space is open, they're going to play into it. If you're too deep, if they see that, you know, your range is good, then that changes the type of balls they're going to play in, the type of attack they have, and that's what you want. You want to manipulate the other team. You want to control them by your positioning, and that comes to outside of of your 18 as well.
Yeah. No.
By the way, the Aleutian Islands are off Alaska.
They are off Alaska. Okay.
Before our things blew up, like our comment board blew up, they are. Yes. And
Okay. Okay. Good. Wow. Good. Okay. Good. I remembered that. I remembered that well. Now
Okay.
all I just need to remember is what city Pippi Longstocking lived in, and I'll be good to go from 3rd and 4th grade literature. Omar, you know, obviously one thing when it comes to playing outside the 18, it's really determines is based on like the scenarios and also like the system that your team's playing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you break the field up into different thirds, I think when your team is pressing in, I guess your offensive third, so like let's say, you know, 3 of 3 we call it, in their offensive third, most likely your position is going to be a little bit higher, but most likely you're not going to influence too much off your line. It's going to be more of ball over the top, and you're going to, you know, create depth to receive a back pass more often than not. Then if it's like second, third, you're going to be a little bit higher, probably like, you know, around the D of the 18, and then that's probably where we're going to try and influence your positioning to, like as Saskia said, they're going to see where you are, what is your range, play ball over the top, and see if you come out, do you make a mess of it, do you clear it out? So in those situations, I think in the second, third, you're going to stay at the top of your box to try and influence the play. And then when your team is in their own defensive third, now you're talking about maybe from like the 6 to the PK spot, can we influence any serve balls that are in? And if not, your defenders will drop into that space and clear it out. And I think in that final third defensively, those are where most of the mistakes happen, I feel, where if there's no synergy between you and your back four or your center backs, who, you know, what your range is, what their range is, what their responsibilities are, I think that can cause a lot of trouble. And for me in college, we had guys, 2 center backs, one was 6'4", one was 6'5". So my coach would always say, hey, I know you want to be aggressive off your line, but these guys will do the job for you. Just let them take care of the most of the heavy lifting in the air. So that gave me, okay, I'm going to lessen my range. So it just depends on who you're playing with.
You know, it's interesting you just said that, Omar, in regards to the 6'4", 6'5", you know, and the size of the players and stuff. Emily, does that kind of, when you're playing, I see that you naturally play very high, and I don't know if that was just necessarily just the Betis style, or when you were at Betis, or was that just kind of how you feel comfortable? Because obviously it is fluid how you move.
I've always naturally been an aggressive goalkeeper. So playing off my line has always been something that's been very natural. I think as I've been at the professional level, and especially at Betis, I think I've kind of fine-tuned kind of what Omar and Saskia were saying, where you want to find that balance between being aggressive and being reckless. Because of course, the higher levels that you get, if you are too far off your line, you're going to cause a mess of it behind you. And you want to influence the play, but you also don't want to create a mess, and you don't want to tip your hand either. So I definitely kind of fine-tune that in Betis, but I've always been naturally inclined to play a pretty aggressive line just in general.
Yeah, and I think, and I agree with you so much on what you said. There's reckless and there's aggressive. And I'm sorry, I just keep thinking of Hannah.
Are you talking about the recovery play?
The recovery play, and I don't know if you've seen this, and it was top number 2 on ESPN Sports Center. And
did you see this?
No, I didn't see it.
If we find it, we'll pull it up. But first of all, she made a mess of it. But it's the recovery that was the great part of it. But again, you also have to understand your back line. And like Omar said, like depending on size or whatever, but you have to not make a mess of things. Allow your defense to defend. And so if you're too aggressive, if you're too reckless off your line, you're taking those defenders their responsibility away, and you're creating chaos. Where if you are calculated about it and you hold, give your defender time to recover, to defend. Don't take up space that you don't need to and make a mess of everything.
Yeah, and I think also too, I think that's from the coach's perspective, and any young kids that are listening to this, I think you need to understand that you're going to make your mistakes with this. It's not black and white. It's definitely a lot of gray in between where your range is going to be tested. And I call it expensive mistakes versus inexpensive mistakes. And I think we've all been there when we've misread it, and luckily the striker made a meal of it themselves and missed the frame, or your defenders were able to cover for you. So you necessarily didn't concede, but also it was an opportunity for you to learn. So I think that's also a big one as well for coaches who are impatient. Let it, be more patient. Let the goalkeepers find their range, and obviously with experience. But young goalkeepers as well, you're going to mess up a lot. You're going to misread a lot. What if you're playing on a field that's dry? It looks like it's coming. That bounce, dries up, and now you're in the middle of nowhere in no man's land. And the striker caught up to it because it died. So I think, again, those are the experiences that you need over time. And as coaches from my side of things as well, and all of our, Saskia as well, it's kind of like, and Mike, who's a coach as well, sorry. But we're all kind of
well, I'm coach adjacent. How about that? Let's go there.
But yeah, in the pro game as well, I've had to be very mindful that we do have a game coming in the coming days. So how do I become critical with also the big picture in mind?
Yeah. And I think, one of the really good things that both of you guys brought up right there, and Emma, I want to bring this up with you, is that, it's not about being reckless. And there's a difference, right, Em, between you saying, I feel comfortable playing high, I feel comfortable, being in control. But there's a difference between, confidence and arrogance. And I think, what they were saying in regards to arrogance is you're trying to do more than you should be doing, or you feel that you can control the situation better than your team and you don't trust them.
Yeah, there's definitely, you've got to find a balance, right, of trying to influence the game. And I think especially young goalkeepers want to impact the game, and they want to, you're standing there for 90 minutes and they're looking for every opportunity to have that impact, but also letting the game come to you and understanding that it's a partnership. I know it can feel very isolating as a goalkeeper, but you are very much a part of that back line. You're called the last defender for a reason. And those people in front of you have their jobs to do as well. And it has to be a relationship that you build with them. Even, back to what Omar was saying, even building those relationships at the pro level takes time. I mean, I'm in a new team. I'm learning my center backs. I'm learning my outside backs, even my center mids, making checking runs through the midfield. It's definitely a process. But just having kind of that mutual respect for the players in front of you, and having that understanding and having those conversations outside of games and even outside of trainings to kind of build those relationships and understanding, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think I saw it when our scrimmage, when I was letting some of the younger goalkeepers play, and some of the keepers don't start very much. We have 5, just so you're wondering.
Yeah,
I know.
There's a keeper wars team. The whole keeper wars team.
That's a whole volleyball team, I think.
I know. But the time that they were trying so hard to for their time in to impact the game, they were making the dumbest mistakes. Like whether it's trying to serve a long ball that's just not on, and just show that they can hit that ball and bypass the first line and stuff. And it's just like forcing these issues to be. I'm like, the best way for you to be noticed right now is to do everything simple and and kind of not be noticed. Keep it clean, keep it simple, play the right balls. Forcing an issue she can ping that ball. Well, you didn't, and it's obvious to me that you're trying too hard and trying to influence a game where, like you said, let the game come to you.
Yeah.
Again,
go ahead, Omar.
Again, and like I said earlier, there's a lot of gray area, and I think a lot of times when the goalkeepers are in good positions to 1v1s, but let's talk about just balls over the top that are flighted through. When you take your first step, you want to make sure as well that, okay, after that first step, you kind of realize, okay, I can't come for it. Doesn't mean you have to continue. You can also drop off and be an option for a pass back. And again, from a striker's perspective, if the goalkeeper drops off, now they have to defend the center back or the right back, left back, who's looking for an option. And now they're in a half space essentially. And that could give your defender a half second to turn and play upfield. So you don't always have to influence the play. And I think that's where the IQ a little bit comes into play from those experiences of like, I know I'm halfway into this, but I could also drop off and give my defender some depth to, one-touch clearance, or, show the opposite side of the field for a ball across me to play one touch up the field. So that first step should give you an opportunity to kind of delay and then see what's in front of you. And if you feel like that ball took a good bounce and you can come and attack it and play it out of bounds, or you can keep possession, I think that's I think the next level for me, for any goalkeeper.
And I love what you just said there, right there, Omar. And I think that's one of the issues that a lot of young goalkeepers have is they're not willing to be patient when they're outside of the 18 because they kind of feel like rushed and not recognizing how much time they actually do have in a lot of these scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely struggled with that early on in my professional career. I mean, I would get to a lot of things, but it was just one-time clearances all the time. And that's fine. I mean, it's a safe option. But I think that's where really being confident with your feet and training your first touch, just to have that confidence on the ball and understand that you do oftentimes have more time than you think, and being able to scan your defenders and also knowing the system that you're playing, right? And knowing your defenders, what options they're going to give you, what spaces they like to check into, what naturally, your body position as you're coming up to a ball, what options reasonably are you going to have when you get there, and then looking to see if anybody's there and processing that information at a quicker rate. And that's trial and error again. And I think the most important thing when we're talking about this is kind of admitting that confidence and security with whatever decision you decide to make, that you are giving off that security and assuredness to everybody on the field. And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the balls that are going to be played into that space for the rest of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes complete sense, because I think that's a conversation we've even had before, Saskia, is that like, if a goalkeeper early on in the game makes a simple, clean decision from a distribution standpoint, that gives a certain mindset to the other team, like, oh, we can't press this goalkeeper like we thought we could. This goalkeeper is very confident. They understand their role in this system.
No, absolutely. I mean, I even as a coach, I'll watch the other goalkeepers' warm-ups to see how their touches are on the ball with distribution and everything. And I'll say to our forwards, I'll be like, if we're high pressing, press the keeper, force them to put the ball back to the keeper, make her play with her feet. Because if she does mess up once or twice, now it's in her head. But if you do on the opposite of that, if you're nice and clean, simple and everything, the other team notices that. They're like, all right, well, maybe the press on the goalkeeper's not on because she seems pretty solid with her feet. So they might drop off.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Omar.
I know this may sound irrational. At sometimes in some.
Oh my God!
No, in some moments.
What a segue!
Hold on,
No,
the most unorthodox out of left field thing's gonna come out of Omar's mouth now.
No, it's not bad. I just don't want it to seem like it's like it's unrealistic. But there are certain times too where there are passbacks, and my goalkeepers that I've worked with in the past, they just kick the ball upfield. And how Em said, it's like, when you kind of see a goalkeeper do that, you in your mind kind of go, okay, they're panicking. They're just going to play a ball upfield, and we can reset our back four and then start playing. But if you're present, which is a challenge that I've had or I've offered to my goalkeeper that I'm working with at the Lights, is like, be extremely present in the situation. When that center back has a lot of time on the ball, most likely they're going to try and dink the ball over the top if we have a high line. Okay, so when they play that ball over the top, where were we pressing from? Probably the left side, right? Okay, so if they play it over the top and you're showing depth and it's a one-touch clearance, anybody can play kickball. Anybody can get a one-touch clearance and boot it up the field. But can you, in those moments where the center back was about to play over the top, take a quick picture and examine where our pieces are on the field, where that one-touch clearance or a two-touch clearance can be directed in a position? And we had this past 2 weeks ago against San Diego. Tough result in the end, but there's one moment where it's a pass back, he took 2 touches, moved with the ball, played it over the top to the corner, and now our striker was in, and their defender had it headed out of bounds for a throw in their defensive third, in our offensive third now. So it's like, anybody can play the ball big, but can we start taking pictures and be not a pessimist, but be proactive about the situation and start directing passes into good areas? And I think that's where, again, you're present versus passive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you have to see where your numbers are. Like if we, who's up there, if you can take a touch, two touches and knock it over the top with purpose, 100%. I agree with you. Anybody can just like boot it like back and forth, back and forth. But there's got at the pro level, at the level, like at the level we're playing at in college, there has to be purpose to that clearance.
Exactly.
But I
But
get it. There's some clearances you got to put in the stand. I mean, I get that.
sure.
But if you have that time, like you said, Emily, like, if you have more time than you think, that's got to be hit with some purpose.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many times. Go ahead, Omar.
I'm so sorry, Mike. But no, just again, that's if I was trying to paint a picture, if ball comes over the top, our left back is, running onto it, and you're showing at the end line. I say all the time, like take a directive touch or like a moving touch so you can go to the opposite side. So if they're playing you the ball, that moving touch needs to be deliberate. Like you need to know exactly where you're taking this touch because you've scanned the field.
Mm-hmm.
And now that touch, obviously, if it's good, you watch Ederson. I mean, it's kind of a tougher example because he has so much respect now. So it's not like his early days, but he takes a perfect touch and now he freezes everybody because he can pick out where he wants to go. And if he doesn't want to go big, he can show big and then show short. He can show short, then go big. And I think, in my opinion, most goalkeepers, if you just train it and practice it enough, you'll have that capacity with that first touch. And now, because of the pictures you've seen, now you can start picking your passes where you want to go. I think, again, that's the next level thing. And in college as well, there's going to be opportunities we can play big. But if we can keep it, and I'm sure at a school like UCLA, where like you guys probably, run most teams off the field with the quality side of things, I think keeping the ball away from a lack of equality with quality is better.
It's interesting what you guys were saying right there, because I was just thinking about this with you and watching some of your work on Y Scout recently, is that you can, with your starting position, you can essentially manipulate the other team into playing into areas where you feel comfortable and your team's going to be successful. Is that something that's intentional for you, or is that something that just happens naturally and organically through the game?
Little bit of both. I mean, I've watched a lot of football. I've always been really drawn to just that style. And I've trained that a lot, but also it is intentional with regards to the system that we're playing. Because I can direct all I want, and I can buy myself all the time in the world. Like what Omar was saying, you can buy yourself time with a good first touch. You can buy yourself time with good positioning and putting yourself into good spaces to like separate yourself and give yourself room to kind of scan and assess the field. But if the rest of your team is not on that same page and those options don't appear, then it's the same result as if I just run out and kick the ball long regardless. So every team I've been on, it's definitely a conversation. Most teams that I go to know that that's the style that I like to play. And they bring me in because they understand that that's how I play, because it is a little bit different. But it is a conversation that we have to have. And it's always like a bit of a process to kind of get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, and I think, having that conversation, that is really, really important, because again, if you're, like you were talking about, before, if your outside backs don't know that this is how you want to play, or your center backs don't know how this is you want to play, it's going to be all over the place. Saskia, obviously this is an issue, and this is the reason why there is a preseason, but when you have younger goalkeepers, who don't get necessarily the reps and things like that, they're going to be stuck a lot of times in situations where, they're trying to play a certain way, but that's not the way that the team wants to play, right?
Yeah, I mean, always it takes time. It's why we have 5 keepers. We're grooming them. By the time they take over, they get it.
But like we were talking about, obviously, if you make these mistakes in these areas and stuff like that, the recovery is so important. Obviously, Saskia, you were talking about just recently, a play that ended up, that was from a mistake which wasn't followed with a second mistake. Like you always say, never follow one mistake with another mistake, and it was an incredible recovery run back to make that save. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, it's literally all over ESPN. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. But how important is it that we don't get that, Saskia, that deer in the headlights situation? Because I think that's what happens a lot of times to young goalkeepers. They misclear a ball or whatever, and they just stand there.
Well, what was really amazing is our captain, one of our captains, Marley, said in our meeting, talking about it, saying, you know, we were up 3-0, and she felt that a lot of other people in that situation probably would have froze. You know, they screwed that up. The ball, they were at, you know, she was out of the box. The ball bounces through, and you're like, shit. You know, I shouldn't have done that. And you see the player hit the ball towards the goal, and you would have stopped. And you're up 3-0. You know, no. And so there was no deer in headlights. It was she's probably going to go out for UCLA track and be a sprinter at this point. I think it was written somewhere in like one of the UCLA things that it was just like Hannah Mitchell, like the fastest, like 20 yards in UCLA history, like whatever. But you know, you're exactly right. And so that would have been a second mistake, would be deer in headlights. And she didn't. She had an amazing recovery, and it was an amazing second save. But, you know, that's what I mean by don't follow one mistake by another. Here you go. You'll see it. Here you go.
Here we go. Here we go.
Is she the starter?
No.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Debacle.
Ooh.
Watch.
Look at this run. Look at that run.
Why is she a goalkeeper? I could never run that fast.
That's literally the fastest goalkeeper I've ever seen.
You see that explosion was crazy. I was like, because she was like, somebody posted on my page like, oh crap, I'm not going to screw this up for any team. Yeah, so that's in what we're talking about. That's a horrible decision coming out. Right. So you had a defender there. You had two defenders there. So you created chaos in a situation that if you had held, quite possibly your defense would have figured it out. But adding yourself into the mix outside of the box there was a huge mistake. The recovery was epic, obviously. So why is she? I got to tell her that one on Friday. Why is she a goalkeeper?
Put her as a winger. Like, come on.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, shout out to like the strength and conditioning department at UCLA, because like that was the quickest first step by a goalkeeper, and the acceleration on that was just like next level. I mean, like, you know.
And Omar, no, we were up 3-0 and dominating the game. So you know, we used it as an opportunity to give our second string her some play, and she had actually a great game. Like, other than this, she had a great scrimmage the week before, and really earned it. And like, it's very rare that we get the chance to get that, you know, that player time. And so she made the most of it on that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Omar.
No, I think again, I think in college, because it's such a short season, it's like sometimes it's just experience obviously matters, but it's from the coaching staff as well. It's just whoever has the hot hand and whoever can show consistency. I think obviously in any sport, but I think with goalkeeping specifically in the college season, sometimes it's from the get-go, it's an open competition. And then that goalkeeper, obviously from their sophomore, they go to junior year, and then like all they have to show is their consistency. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just when you get your opportunity, don't have to show crazy moments. It's just making sure that you're consistent. There's peace of mind with the coaching staff, and you do all the little things, these little moments, right. And if you don't, how do you make up for those mistakes, or how do you make up for those errors? And I think, I mean, I don't know if she'll be the starter this year, Sauce. I mean, I don't want to announce it here, but
no, we've already started playing. Okay. Lauren, that was a regular season game. Lauren's our starter, but you know,
and she's a Herman Trophy on watch list.
But Hannah, and who's playing great as well. But Hannah worked her way up for this, and she wasn't number 2 last year, and you know, she's worked her way into the number 2 position. And I looked her dead in the face. I said, well, don't be satisfied with number 2. You know, just keep pushing Lauren, because that's what's made you great. Before that, you were pushing, you know, Adalia and Kelly and stuff, and now now you're pushing and you're doing great. Keep it up. But I was, you know, and Lauren, like, we could talk about my keepers. Lauren came up with some huge saves in our game against Fullerton the other day, which, by the way, was in front of 8,000 people, which was pretty sick. So they're doing it. I'm proud of them.
I want to bring this up right now. I want to bring up some of these scenarios of Emily's right here, and let's see if we can. Whoops, Let's see here. So I want to play this first one right here. And Em, if you can help out like with the audience and stuff like that too, because I believe this is Betis versus Sevilla, right? So this is a big rivalry match that's going on right here, right? And this is in the 34th second. Basically, I think what happens is ball's played into midfield. It's headed back into your area. And then there's a Betis player is covered on as a charging Sevilla player is coming on right here. So you kind of come out and you kind of shield the player away and play it out of danger far enough so that it's kind of out of danger. But there's that recovery, and it's hard to see it right here on camera because like they stream away or whatever. But this is that immediate recovery that we're kind of talking about right here. So let's kind of play it in real time again so that everyone can kind of see who's watching. Boom. Played out, and then that's the recovery. Boom, just to make sure you don't get chip type of there. So can you kind of walk us through what was going on right here?
Yeah, that to me, looking at that, I don't know if you guys are watching my face during that, but I'm definitely cringing.
Were you watching mine?
I was really trying not to look at anything, to be honest. I don't want to look at anything. So that game, that context for that game, this is not a defense, but yeah, that's our derby. That's against Sevilla. We are playing in Villamarin, which is that men's team stadium. There was, I think, like 20,000 people. Our starter at that point, I didn't think I was going to play. Our starter the night before, they decided, the medical team, that she couldn't play. And that is the deer in headlights, definitely nervy moment. Hindsight, don't come for that. My defender's gonna reach that ball, and it's a simple pass back. And then I've got plenty of time to figure it out from there. Or, okay, if I'm gonna come out, that clearance has to be much better than that. Because at that point, when I reach the ball, I don't have any other options. My two center backs are way too close to the ball. They don't have time to open up. My two outside defenders don't have time to give an option. The only thing left for me to do is kick the ball long, and really, that's just not simple football. Sometimes football is the best when it's just simply being played and not trying to force something that just really shouldn't happen.
No, and I agree.
Well,
I mean, this is a good example of give your defender the chance to defend, in a sense. Like, that's a pass back, and I mean, I think if you would have cleared that any other direction, it would have been in the back of your net because you would have cleared it right into the red player. But so kudos on that one. But I agree, and it's good to be able to be, I like the aggression, but I agree with you. I think it could have been a pass back.
I mean, I was kind of trying to talk more about like, don't follow one mistake with a second mistake. And I was trying to show that little recovery right
recovery,
here. But everyone,
it was not as fast as the other girls. It was not that fast.
She's never coming on the show again. Great clip, Mike. Awesome.
And
we got other ones. We have other ones.
That run back is me knowing very well that I have messed up, and if I get scored off of this, they should pull me, and just that's it. Like, that's what that run back is.
It's a common theme. Mike puts up clips sometimes, and he like stretches it as much as he can to try to get something out of it, and then usually the person who's in it's like, I didn't see it that same way, but okay, thanks.
Why'd you pick that one?
Come on, Mike, put up another one.
Okay, I'm fine. I'll put up another fine goal while I'm putting.
No, but I think again, just like we're doing it with panelists. But if you're a player and you're watching your own clips, it's super important. Even if it's a goalkeeper coach just by yourself, when you watch these clips, you're like, okay, that situation is 50-50. I probably could have done a better job with this clearance or try to keep possession with the clearance, but I'd much rather stay back. It's not in my best interest to come out for that again. So now the next situation where you're kind of like 50-50, that mental recall, whether people like believe it or not, it happens so quickly. And in that half second, when you decide I'm not going to go, now you're comfortable with the decision. And then we talk about taking those pictures from earlier. And now when you receive a pass, are you taking a big touch to the left side because that's where the area is open? Or are you getting a one-touch clearance up? Again, there's so many different like levels to it, but I think watching your own film and realizing, crap, I could have done something different, helps you so much in the future.
Okay, so I'm gonna try again. And I'm gonna see how Emily feels about this one.
I'm like holding my breath.
This is the
You.
Good point.
Now, to be fair, we're friends, so I'm not as freaked out because I think Emily Understand. Okay, fine. I'm still freaked out. I still feel bad. Maybe I just I don't expect this the same high standard that you guys do in goalkeeping, and so I was like, that's a great play. If I did that, I'd feel great. But so anyway,
Oh my.
everyone's like, oh, that's why you don't play for us. So 55th minute, this is Batiste versus Real, versus Rayo. This is played back to Emily from short. She recognizes the pressure on her and that the passing lane is not open. So she shields the ball and with one touch finds the open player and remains in a good holding position. So, oh, no, that was not was that the one? Yeah, that is the one. Yeah. So
Did you rehearse that or what, dude? I feel like that was a very...
That was like, are you reading off a prompter?
Yeah. In the private chat. Don't you guys know? See, you have the you guys have the notes too. You guys don't have the notes?
Oh.
They're right there in the private chat.
No,
Giving away the secret right here. So anyway, walk us through this one, Emily, right here.
Yeah, so this one a little more comfortable. Definitely kind of got a better read. Also, I think my start position could have been higher. Definitely that's something that I improved on a lot that year. That was my first year at Betis, if I'm not mistaken. And if my line is higher, I definitely get there more comfortably. But recognizing that pressure coming down, I mean, my left is going to get there late. It does give time for my central defender to pick her head up. We've got a nice split and we're out the other side. So I think in that moment, a little bit calmer, just better decision making, not rushing, not forcing anything, and good communication also with the other center back, knowing that, she just has to kind of put off the oncoming attacker enough for me to get a touch in. So that one's better, Mike. Thank you. A little better. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So each one's slowly improving. So by the end, we're going to have these wonderful plays going on.
That one, I still see some problems, but it's a little better.
The funniest thing about this,
all our worst critics.
To break the fourth wall, Em literally sent me 5 minutes of highlights, and I was like, and instead I'm like, no, confidence versus arrogance. I'm like, I can do better. I can find some better stuff on Y Scout, so I go and do that. Omar, you got to help me out here, man. I need the Pro GKI when it comes to this on the breakdowns.
If it's not there, don't force it. That's all I'm gonna say. If the clip isn't there, it's better to have a discussion on a generic clip than trying to force a clip. That's my 2 cents.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anything anybody else wants to add to this
No.
before we move on? Okay. All right. We'll move on. We'll move on from this play right here then. Okay. So this is the 67th minute. Basically what happens is the ball is swung back to Emily at the top of the 18. She takes a prep touch forward, being comfortable to go outside the 18. And I think that's something that we want to definitely discuss after we look at this. This is creating space for the line, which plays the ball up to the outside back. Then you stay in a good holding supporting position high, and the ball's played back to you, allowing you to build and swing the ball out to the opposite side in possession. So here comes the ball. Boom, you prep touch, coming high, plays the ball. Out. Actually, no, that was the wrong clip. God darn it.
Oh,
I thought
man.
I had these. This is all over the place. What is going on today, guys? All right, fine, Emily, walk us through this one. You were there.
Yeah, that one definitely more simple. Looking back, I would still probably be a little bit higher start position. And I probably would play that ball first time. I wouldn't take that touch because that touch gives that oncoming forward to kind of close the space on my other center back. But yeah, I mean, looking at the structure of the attacking team, I mean, that forward's pretty isolated. My center back that I'm playing to right now always has me. We go out the other side if she feels there's pressure. So I don't know, I think especially in that team and my team now as well, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable in tight spaces. My defenders are typically comfortable in tight spaces and pressure. I'm not sure, ideally speaking, I'd like to take that touch a little wider, and even that outside back to my right comes and gets that ball instead. Again, it's creating space and time for the player that you're passing the ball to. I can give the ball to somebody and it's not like I wipe my hands and it's like, oh, well, I'm done. If they lose the ball, then like it's not on me. Like their next pass to me personally is also my responsibility, that they're set up for success for the next action in the play. So not bad, but I would still probably play that one time and create more space to just help my defender a little bit more.
So we've gone like first clips like a D, then like a C, then like a B. Like, so am I going up? Am I escalating on the clips here?
You're like you went from a D to like a C to a C plus. Well, in your defense, these are all clips from my first year in Betis, and really that first year was me working through a lot of those little details. So to be honest, like, I'm gonna look at these clips with a little bit more of a critical eye than probably I would have if you had shown me this 2 years ago. I'd have been like, oh yeah, that's much better than what I was doing in Poland. But like now I look at it and like, there's some stuff to clean up.
Oh, okay, so this is the clip that I wanted to talk about right here, and I feel you, because that's the way I look at like old comedy sets of mine. When people watch them, they're like, "Oh, this is actually really good." I'm like, "No, that's terrible. Please don't ever show that to anybody before." I can't believe I used to do that joke. That's terrible. So this is the clip I really wanted to show was this one right here, and this is what I was talking about with you actually coming outside the 18, more comfortable. Boom, you're drawing that player in right there, allowing that passing angle to be open, then you stay high, you can play the ball back, boom, 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 like that. So is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's better, because for me personally, I do want to have that comfortability on the ball, and I think it's important to kind of have that confidence to bring the pressure to you, obviously understanding there's a balance there. You don't want to get your pocket picked. But if that forward comes and closes that space, that means there's more space somewhere else in the field, and conceptually having a picture in your head of what's happening to the space on the field that you're not directly looking at, I think is really, really important when we're talking about playing out of the back and playing in that space outside the 18 with your defenders.
See, I love what happened right here, and I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but just the simple fact is that when you allowed that pressure to kind of come into you, then you played the ball quickly, simply, but by doing that, that chaser drew to your player on the ball, which opened up that space again for you. Now you have plenty of space to play that ball back. Like right here, boom.
Yeah.
And now you got all that space.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, for forwards, they can't, the majority of forwards, I will say, can't do, suicide sprints for 90 minutes. So a lot of those times, those simple pass backs can create new options and new lanes. Even if you're playing a ball to somebody, knowing very well you're going to receive the ball back and understanding you need to hold that position and show again, because they're not going to be able to turn out of that pressure. That means that the space is created somewhere else.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
This is why goalkeepers always need to participate in rondos. Like, you need to understand spacing.
Yeah.
You need to understand who you play the ball to. Where's the open space? What are they doing with it? Are you setting them up for a one touch or a two touch? Where's your movement after you play them? That is why you have to play rondos as often as you can.
Agreed.
Yep.
But
Yep.
even Emily, even just the way you were breaking that down again, like, I know I'm a very impatient person, so I kind of want everybody to speak it the way, or like say it the way you did. But I think, again, analyzing and being, like you said, with a critical eye is super important. And again, you have to audit yourself as often as possible. Obviously, the proper timing, like if you're in the middle of the season, it's probably not best to like criticize yourself every single time. But it's important to take that critical eye and say, okay, what could I have done better? What would the opposing team, like what were they forcing me to my right foot, to my left foot? Where was the space? And then now when you get those pictures and you kind of critique yourself, the next time you're out there, you can really, really play with a little bit more freedom, because you have options now.
Yeah. I want to kind of put this up right now here, because we've kind of been talking about, the decision making and, how about having patience, but also you need to also recognize when you have to play a simple clearance. So I kind of want to play this ball right now, right here. This is in the 42nd minute. It's Betis versus Rayo. The ball's played over the top by Rayo from the midfield.
Just play it.
Okay. Simple touch with confidence into space right there. So can I walk through it now, or should I let Emily walk through it?
Let Emily walk through it.
Okay.
I love reading. I love reading a screenplay, but watching someone else read one, I don't know. I just something about it.
I was trying to be prepared.
This is not an audition.
I know,
Omar was like,
Mike's
we have to give people context so that they can go back if they're listening to the audio and find the clips themselves, you know,
So
on,
you tell them
Y
what
Scout or
game.
YouTube.
You tell them what game.
Yeah. Okay, just the game.
What you did. Yeah, what you did.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
All right.
Do it.
All right, go ahead, Emily.
So the ball's played over the top. No. Yeah, that ball's played over. Specifically in that system, I mean, that's a situation where we've talked about that ball before. And my outside back is tracking back, knowing that I'm looking for her in that pocket. And later on in that clip, you kind of see our center mid and that center back, I guess my left center back, kind of triangulating around that situation, and we end up playing out. So to me, I always want to keep possession if it's possible. So I've definitely, in the beginning, I was too aggressively trying to keep possession. After I, was playing everything long, and then I swung so far the other way. But again, like that's something that you talk about, with your team or whatever, playing that into a good space. I'd probably try to play that on the ground if possible, like try to make that touch a little bit cleaner for her. But not awful.
Jeez, you guys have the higher standards in the world. I am feeling awful about all these clips that I've chose. I think I feel like I need to lose that. Well, to be fair, Emily, you did have the injury, so it was difficult to find some more recent footage.
Mike,
anything? Go ahead, Omar.
Really quickly.
Absolutely, please save me.
Okay. So this is our goalkeeper. We had a conversation about this, and it's like finding your space. He usually does a really good job of it, but this one, let me just pull it up here. Yeah, see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just let it play through, and we can talk about it.
Okay. You don't want to give the screenplay?
No. And then our center back, I don't know what the heck he was doing.
What a debacle that was.
That was a whole debacle.
This is, again,
what is going on here?
In the conversation, like right away, I went up to our backup goalkeeper and I said, in these situations, you need to find space. So if you're in the same line where the striker doesn't have to do any extra work but just continue their run, you are doing a disservice to your center back. So I told him, like, you need to find the space. Even if you show all the way, like, out in this side, on the right side, where this huge Jarritos banner is, like, showing this corner, now the striker has to take like a J or like an L run to try and get to you, and it gives you time to just play it out of bounds. But instead, now you have no space to clear this ball.
And the direct line of the
Exactly. So something like that as well, where through experience, now it's an inexpensive mistake because he didn't get scored on. But the teams will capitalize on that. And if you want to play at the next level, those are the conversations that you have to have for yourself. Is like, did I put myself in a good position or a bad position to be exposed at a higher level?
Right.
I don't know. Again, that's our center back. I think he was just tired. It was a rough one. But yeah.
Is this the same play?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're showing a replay of it.
Just the worst. Just the worst.
I thought it happened more than once in the game.
I thought now I don't feel so bad about the clips I chose of Emily. So it was like, if Alex ever came on the show, is that what you're going to show Alex? Jeez.
Yeah. But those are the conversations. Like even today, he was like, yeah, I feel like I've gotten better at my, bypassing the left center back and going to the left winger. And like 2 minutes later, there was a ball that didn't need to be played, and he tried to play it. And we lost possession of it, and they countered us. And they didn't score, but they countered. And I'm like, dude, I love that you have confidence in your passing. I love that you want to do that. But anybody can hit a pass when there's no pressure on them. Do you know when you're going to hit it? Do you know if we're trying to go forward with that pass? Are you playing the defender's back foot? Like, what are we doing here? So I think, again, anybody can play a ball into space or into a striker with no pressure. But it's about when you do it and understanding the context.
Go ahead, Em.
No, I mean, I would even add on. I mean, that's what film is for. I mean, I'm giving you a hard time at the clips, but to be honest, it doesn't bother me because in contexts like those, it's really hard to analyze what could have been better, what you maybe should have looked at that you missed without seeing that game footage. And that's how personally I've learned, is making those mistakes in a game, whether they're expensive or inexpensive, as Omar put it, and then taking that information and making better decisions the next time. I mean, that's, to me, the most valuable way to grow, like in any aspect really of goalkeeping, but especially in this one. where there's so many moving pieces and every situation is so specific and individual. That, I mean, I think talking about mistakes honestly is probably more constructive than looking at the times that you did it well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Saskia, a question for you.
Yeah.
In the college game too, when you have obviously a larger roster and you have 4 goalkeepers that aren't playing, how often are you, whether it's film or during the game, kind of like grouping them together and saying, look,
Always.
you're not the one in there, but this is a mistake you can learn from?
I always talk to them. I'm like, probably all the players on the bench at this point know how to solve certain situations. No, but I'll go up to Hannah, I'll pull Hannah over, or E or whoever, and I'll be like, what would you like in this situation? This is what should have been done. I do it in practice as well. And like, I'll be, even if I'm behind, like today when we were doing small sided and I'm behind, I was across from Lauren's goal, and I think Hannah was in goal opposite of her, but Lauren made a mistake. And I was like, that is what I'm talking about in this situation, even though it wasn't Hannah's mistake, it was Lauren's, but she's watching it, you know? So this is what I'm referring to when we're talking about, stealing space, but staying big and so on and so forth. So I'm constantly pointing it out.
I think, one thing that's also, really important.
And we do video every day. So whether it's full team video and everything. So.
Yeah.
And I think it's just in regards to the video analysis of situations like this and why it is, I think, sometimes more difficult to find clips for this type of activity or these types of scenarios is because they are very subjective, to what's going on in the game. Like, I mean, finding final action scenarios, and breaking those down, I mean, is much more simplistic than when you're talking about the complexity of how you want to play, where you want to play the ball, what's going on in this situation, yada, yada. So, guys, just give me a little bit of slack, please. Please, a little bit of slack. We'll start wrapping up in a second because I think it's almost midnight for. I think it is midnight. It's midnight, right?
It's after midnight.
It's a little bit after midnight. It's okay.
See, Mike's trying to redeem himself.
There's nothing to redeem.
I'm kidding, Mike.
You're good.
Okay.
Mike, you're great.
Okay.
You know that.
I mean. But I think also that just the fact, Emily, is that you're being so critical and still talking about how that was my first year at Batiste, and thinking for those people out there, just to understand some context. I mean, you've played in the Champions League against some of the best teams in the world. I mean, you've played in one of the best leagues in the world for years and years and years, and still, with all this kind of veteran time, playing at the professional level, you're still that critical of your game, and that's why you're playing at the level that you're at right now. And I think a lot of young goalkeepers need to hear that, because I think they start thinking like, oh, when you get to a certain point, there's nothing to break down anymore. You know what you're doing and you figure it out, but it's a fluid process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom, who has never played football a day in her life, but I stand by, one of the most talented, just general coaches that I've ever met. Coached basketball, coached all these things. And she would always tell me the moment you think that you know everything about everything, stick a fork in you, you're done. Any sport, anything you do, honestly, in life, to get a little metaphysical, but goalkeeping specifically, it's so complex and there's so many different facets and there's so many challenges in it that if you're not looking at all of the mistakes and being critical of yourself, then you're not going to grow. And that makes it hard to stay at the higher levels. Yeah. Like, it's easier to get to the higher levels than it is to stay there and stay competitive. And so I think that it's something really important to not be self-deprecating. You can have confidence in yourself while also recognizing, hey, that should have been done better, and then actively working towards improving it until that becomes one of your strengths and you find something else that could improve, and then you start working on that. It's just a never-ending process.
Yeah. No,
absolutely. Well, guys, we'll start wrapping it up. Hold on, there's a comment right here that somebody wanted to put in, and here it is right here. This is it's a very high level comment.
Love you, Mom.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great, yeah.
Oh, they're great.
You gotta love that.
Oh boy.
Love her.
Oh boy. Well, as we start wrapping, do you have any advice for any young goalkeepers that feel uncomfortable playing outside the 18? Because there's a lot of young kids out there that really are scared to play outside the 18, and they run back and hide inside that 18-yard box.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that anxiety is normal. I think that it can be incredibly uncomfortable in the first, couple of years, honestly, that you're experimenting with it. But really take advantage of every opportunity as that you're playing to kind of make a decision as an opportunity to learn, whether you do it well or poorly. And I'm a very big advocate of you learn by doing. So if you always run back into your net and you play passively, then you're never going to learn those skills unless you put yourself out there to make those mistakes and learn from them. So stay brave in your development, stay committed to developing into that type of goalkeeper that you want to be, and not letting that fear of making a mistake or judgment from your teammates or your coaches kind of hinder that passion to kind of improve.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Anything anybody else wants to add on to that?
I think it was said perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll add one more thing. I'm sorry.
Okay. He's got another clip.
No more clips. But I think, again, we talk about with young kids who are, if you're having an opportunity in high school, let's say, and the coach is saying, hey, we're not going to play you on varsity, but JV is an option, or playing with the freshman team is an option, get the minutes you need, because as Em said, like, the only way you're going to be able to actually improve on these situations is to see them over and over and over again. And I see far too many people, for example, we have some academy guys that train with us, and they don't know how to deal with crosses. And they're really good shot stoppers, decent with their feet. And I'm like, where do you think the game is in the MLS if that's the trajectory you want? A lot of balls surge into the box. And if you can't read it, then what's going on? So it's like, whose fault is that? Probably the goalkeeper coaches who's working there before. It's like they didn't get enough of those reps. They didn't get enough balance. So you have to, again, as coaches and as players, find opportunities where you get those reps. And if you can get those reps on a lower level team, then you have to prove yourself there and get a lot of reps. And then by the time you get the experience and the opportunity to play for the first team or the varsity team, you're actually making an impact versus, oh, hey, you have this that's wrong, you have this that's wrong. Iron all that stuff out before, and to do that, you need minutes.
Yeah.
Omar Zini, motivational speaker and life coach to the young ones.
No.
Out there. Well, Em, thanks again for staying up to past midnight. I mean, we were excited to have you back on, and I'm glad that Saskia was able to join us this time, because I know she wasn't able to join us last year.
Me too.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Where's the best place for people to connect with you on social media? I know you're pretty active there, and shout out to to Huelva of some of the awesome pictures from the training sessions lately. We're going to share, I think, one of them in a few minutes, but some really, really good ones. I love it.
Yeah, so my handle on all social media is the same. It's EmilyGK19. I'm open to chatting about goalkeeping, chatting about my process with football, with anything. Anybody who knows a little bit about my story knows that I've got, coming back from injuries. So I'm always open to chatting with just about anybody. And no, thank you so much for having me again. Like, I really enjoyed talking with you guys, and yeah, I'm super glad, Saskia, that you could be with us this time, because we missed you last time.
Absolutely, and I'm glad your mom's on.
Oh my God, me too. I miss her.
Oh, that's awesome.
And do you want to plug your poetry?
Well, okay, so I write poetry. I do write poetry. I've got some upcoming publications coming up that I'm going to be putting out on my social media. So if there's any goalkeeper / literary fans out there, give me a follow, because I do both.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta have the outside interest, guys. You gotta have the balance, as we always talk about. And speaking of a man who's very balanced, he's got the balance of college goalkeeping, professional goalkeeping, amateur goalkeeping. So it's a very balanced schedule for Omar Zini. You can reach out to him at ProGKAcademy _ on Instagram, as we all know. And you can reach out to Saskia Weber at Saskia _ Weber. You can be following everything that's going on with the UCLA seasons, because she's very active on posting all the results going on at UCLA. So that's always good. And guys, if you have a guest suggestion or topic suggestion, contact at insidethe18media.com or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. If you guys want to check out my tour schedule for stand-up comedy, it's michaelmagidcomedy.com, which is updated daily. And that is all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.
Yeah.